views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in the show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We're on episode 70, season 7. Just want to say MacPlex this weekend. I think this will be coming out after the game, but check the score. It's the biggest thing in the fall for Pinkerton and Londonderry High School. It's a big rivalry, so I hope to see some of you there, even though this will be coming out after the football game. But anyway, we're having a local guy who moved away. Now he's coming back as a guest. Please welcome former Derry Town Councilor Jim Morgan.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it. Appreciate the invite, and really appreciate the fact to be back in Derry. It's been 4 years since I sat on the council, and we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the debacle of 2015, when a council tried to close a fire station and lay off police officers and do a whole bunch of nasty things that no one really wanted. And the community rose up, and 6,000 people came out this October. It would be 10 years this October, and 6,000 people came out and said, no, we don't want to do it that way. And it was a really, for me, it was a catalyst to wanting to run for council, because it was everything not to do in politics. Yeah. Don't treat people that way. Don't talk to people that way. Don't do those types of things where you're taking services away and increasing response times and doing all kinds of stuff. So now, 10 years later, here we are in Derry, and look at the changes that have developed from the council of 2015 to the council of 2020 to the council of 2025. And it's just really kind of snowballed into the town of Derry becoming just an enormously successful community. And that's awesome. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And I did want to touch on that. So I guess we'll start with you. What's your background and what led you to getting involved in 2015?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 40 years. I started a company when I was 19 years old. I grew it to a $10 million organization with 100 employees and sold that, and worked for a $600 million company for about 26 months before I decided that that's not for me. And for me, it's about building families and building a company that has loyalty to the customer and loyalty to the people within the thing, really having a culture that looks at everybody with value, which a lot of companies don't do today. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have a motion in this country where we're kind of degrading CEOs and we're kind of looking away from successful business people. And unfortunately, that's unfortunate, because the reality is that business people are what move our country.
Atlas Shrugged.
There you go.
I mentioned that a few shows ago when Chris Brake came on.
Yeah. And for me, building a company, building pride in a product, manufacturing stuff. So I was in microwave semiconductors, so mostly all of our customers were military, defense related. My dad was a World War II veteran, so I was raised under that type of America where, you have pride in your country and you sacrifice for your country and you love your country. And it's unfortunate because, well, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's either unfortunate that we haven't had major wars in the last 40 years, or it's a good thing that we haven't. And the reality is, as a child, when you grow up with parents that have been in a world war, or parents that have seen a military life, you are raised with a little bit more pride, I think, for your country, and a little more value for those that fight for your country. And I think that, for me, I looked up to my dad tremendously. I mean, he was everything that I wanted to make him proud. I mean, that was my whole thing. And to be able to develop a business with him in 1986 and grow that business to a $12 million level, and then sell it and be able to have that success, was really cool. And then to work for the corporation for a couple of years and then leave with, walking away from a very high level job with no income coming in, and saying, you know what, I think I can do this. And then building a company that was 3 times the size of the first one, and then selling it for a ridiculous amount of money is really tantamount to capitalism, right? We're in the country of America. And when I was in high school, Ronald Reagan said, you can be anything you want to be. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do what you want to do. And as a junior in high school, I took that to heart. And 24 months later, I was the president of a semiconductor company at 19 years old. And, you know, hard work, determination, a little bit of luck, and really valuing the people that are around you and putting a team together, that's the secret to the American dream. And, you know, there's a lot of kids your age, right, that say, well, the American dream is dead, or the American dream is not what it used to be. There's too many mountains to climb. It's too hard to do. Yeah, it is hard to do. It was hard to do in 1986. It was hard to do in 2007. It's hard to do in 2025. But the reality is it's doable. And you've got to work hard, and you've got to have that ethic. And if you do, you'll be successful. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 40 years or so.
And that kind of blended, as you said, into why you wanted to run when that happened in 2015. So I guess start by explaining to those who either don't remember, weren't in Derry yet, or who don't live in Derry at all, what exactly happened then?
Well, it was kind of a funny night. It was a Tuesday night. There was a council meeting. And I didn't know anything about that. I had my last political kind of involvement was with the Bedford High Coalition in 2000. And I founded that with 5 other guys, and we basically got Bedford High School passed. And I got divorced. I moved out of Bedford, came to Derry, met my husband, and I was flipping channels. And he walked into the room, and I stopped because I hit decam. And I saw people yelling and screaming in a town meeting. And, you know, when we were trying to pass the high school in Bedford, it got very contentious. I mean, there was 50% of the town wanted to do it, 50% of the town didn't want to do it. We're dealing with the Bedford Taxpayers Association, and we had to be super political and then super aggressive with how we would raise money and get the message out that we wanted to have our own thing. And look at Bedford High School today, right? It's a huge success. So I'm flipping channels. I stop on this thing, and Paul says to me, change the channel. You don't need to watch this. And I go, what? No, I need to watch this. And I watched that meeting, and that was the meeting where Charlie Foote got thrown out, okay? People were giving the finger to the council. The council was calling people savages.
That's when Representative Mills threw himself out of a meeting.
I believe he did. And it was shocking to me that we would have that type of dialogue between residents and the town council itself. So I started to look more into it, and I reached out to Brian Churchill. And Brian and I had a meeting, and we talked, and I said, look, I think I could do some good things. I think I'd like to get involved. And so I ran for council in 2016 and was elected. And you know, I was running against an incumbent at the time who had been very involved in Derry politics, and I think my message was one of unity and one of we need to figure out a way to work together. We need to move this town forward. We need to not do the same old, and we got to kind of think out of the box. And that philosophy has been tremendously successful in my life, in the corporate life, and I wanted to see if we could apply that in the life in Derry. And people told me I was crazy. People told me that Derry politics were dirtier than any other politics in the state. And you know what? I looked at that as a challenge. And one of the first things that happened was I started to get criticized by Janet Fairbanks and Kevin Coyle, who had a show on DCAM. And so I asked to go on the show because I'm not afraid of anybody. And the purpose of going on the show was to show people that, one, I wasn't afraid of the guy who sits here and criticizes everybody, and two, was to get my message out. And they tremendously helped push my election forward because they foolishly allowed me to come on that show. And they never gave me any support. They never gave me any sort of accolades for all the work that we did do that was good. It was constant criticism, and I used that constant criticism to my advantage. And that's pretty much what I did in Derry, you know, as far as trying to advance my own political career, was use the people that are coming at you because they draw attention. And if you can manipulate that attention into a positive way, people will respond to that. And I think we were successful. I was successful in doing that.
So post 2015 issue with the fire station, what was the council like then as you, I guess, got back to normalcy?
I think the council of 2015 was outstanding. I mean, everybody wanted to do something different, and everybody wanted to do something good. And the first hurdle was to find a town manager that wasn't some guy who didn't have a job. And I think that was my first experience with Derry. Was I sat in a meeting and they had hired consultants to come provide candidates, and these candidates were from Providence, Rhode Island, and from Vermont, and from other places. And it's like, these guys don't have jobs. Why are you hiring guys that don't have jobs? That's not going to tell you that they're going to be better. You should be recruiting people. You want to recruit the best. And so we had the interview, and I finished up the interview, and I looked at the council, and I was new. I mean, I wasn't there that long. These guys didn't know me, but I just looked at them and I said, why are we paying MRI $15,000 to bring us candidates that are C-rated candidates? These guys are terrible. I wouldn't hire these guys. I said, I want the best. And they said, well, all the best have jobs. And I said, so recruit. And that's when they gave me the ability to go out, and I called Keith Hickey, who was a town manager in Bedford at the time, good friend of mine. And I said, Keith, I need the best in the state. And he goes, well, that's Dave Karen. He's in Jaffrey right now. You'll never get him. He would never go to Derry. And I said, well, give me his number. So I reached out to Dave Karen because I knew the history with him in Londonderry. And he had a little bit of tumultuous issues in Londonderry. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, how would you like to come and be the town manager in Derry? And he said, not in your life. Never do it. And I said, well, let's have a lunch. So we went out and we had a lunch. And basically, the bottom line was, I said to him, I go, you're not going to prove what you need to prove to the world in Jaffrey. You want to prove it to somebody, and you want to take Londonderry on, come to Derry and change the town, because the council is going to help you do that. And he believed in that, and he came here. He's the longest serving town manager that Derry's ever had, and just look at the results. And honestly, the council got him here, but Dave did the work, right? The council of the last 10 years, including today's council, is only successful because of what Dave Karen did. He was amazing. And we were very, very fortunate and very lucky to get him.
So, similar story, my uncle, John Henry, was the city clerk of Revere, Massachusetts for, I believe, 33 years. From the 70s until just before I was born, I believe. And he kind of served as, like you said, the silent leader of the city. All the mayors and the city councilors came and went, but my uncle was the one having all the deals done in the back. It's those people that get all the work done,
Yep.
especially in local government.
Yep. I would agree 100%. And Derry was a more unique town then than it is now, because it had such a rocky reputation. And Dave and the councils that have sat since 2015 have done a tremendous job in changing that whole thing. Bev Donovan, another one, phenomenal job. Owen Provencher with what he's done with DCAM. You know, it was a funny story. I sat in my first budget meeting, and the guy who was running the Derry TV was sitting there presenting his budget, and he had and I'm an old Bedford TV guy, so I used to work with Jennings over there at BCTV. And I know all this stuff, right? So I came down and I looked at the studio. The guy's got $600,000 in the bank, almost $700,000 in the bank. They got cameras that are 20 years old. I mean, it was terrible down here. Honest to God, it was terrible. And so the way instead of sitting there and saying, let's just change it, I took $100,000 from his budget, which everybody got upset about. People were coming in and complaining. And I said, if we're not going to spend the money, the fire department needs the money. The police department needs the money. I didn't do it because I wanted to take money from DCAM. I did it because I wanted to spur excitement, and I wanted to spur advancement, and I wanted them to spend the money that they had, because it's Comcast money. It's not taxpayer money, right? So it was a catalyst to kind of kick this can and really improve the station, and it worked out. In the end, it worked out really well.
So how do you think Derry is doing since you left Derry? Obviously, we had and I've talked about it very extensively, the controversy with our school board a couple years ago. There's been plenty going on with the state reps, good and bad. So
We have Derry has a very eclectic collection of state representatives, and it has a school district that's very complex, right? And so there's problems that are there with the school district that need to have level-headed people figure out how to fix it. The shouting and the yelling and the stuff that goes on in school board meetings across the country is very counterproductive to what people are really there for. And you're there to protect kids, and you're there to educate kids. And I think that we've had a huge problem in America with confidence in parents having confidence in public schools to do the right thing, and public schools not doing the right thing, in the sense of trying to steer a child in a certain direction. I didn't send my children to public school because I wanted them to be steered in a different direction. I sent them there because I wanted them to learn reading, writing, math, social studies. I want them to learn. I don't want them to learn the opinions of the faculty. I don't want them to learn the culture of the faculty. That has nothing to do with it, right? And I think a lot of the problems we have today are because teachers are putting books in front of kids without asking parents' permission. It's not, Republicans aren't people that want to ban books, but a 6-year-old, some of the stuff that Senator Kennedy was talking about on Fox the other day was unbelievably bad. Kids should not be seeing that at 6 years old, and the parent should have a decision. They should make those decisions. So I think that conversation's now happening much better than it ever has been. It's almost been shouting matches, but now there's people listening, and I think that's going to benefit. And Derry just got a new superintendent from out of town. I think that's going to do a lot of good for the future curriculum of the town.
So I guess moving up, we have a lot going on at the state level. We're still reeling as a country from what happened a few weeks ago with Charlie Kirk. We've talked about it the last couple shows, but I'm sure you have something to say about it too.
I think that Charlie Kirk's assassination is probably one of the most horrific things I've seen in my 60 years on this earth. You know, I watched President Reagan get shot as a 12-year-old, okay? And I couldn't understand it then. I can't understand it now. And, you know, I think that the thing that I don't understand more than anything is the complete disregard and value of life. Because to go and comment negatively about somebody who just got killed, not even 24 hours, and the posts on Facebook being so negative, I don't care if you have a ideology difference, but when you go out and you post about joy in someone's death, a father, a husband, 2 little kids, that now crosses a line, right?
Yeah. I will never unfriend someone for their political beliefs, even if it's something as egregious as that. But in my eyes, when you say something like that, all opinions you have in the future are invalidated.
I would agree. And you know, for me, it hits home personally because my daughter did a very disappointing post. And I love my daughter. I respect her political stuff. She does not necessarily respect mine. But that was so disappointing from the value of life standpoint. You can disagree politically. You know what? And in all honesty, we're Americans. And I think that's my biggest issue. We're Americans. This country we built together. We didn't build this country as Republicans and Democrats. We built it as Americans. And in politics, I held my Republican associates just as hard, if not harder, to the line than my Democratic people. Because I believe, as Reagan believed, that Republicans should carry themselves in a higher level, and we're business guys. That's how I was raised. So my philosophy and ideology is very much based on fiscal conservativeness, fairness, small government, you know, no regulations. Regulations slow things down. Trump has proven that, right? But I think that the biggest disappointment is that people now use politics as a crutch. Joe Biden had 4 years to close the border. 4 years. He blamed Congress. He didn't do his job. Donald Trump whether you like Donald Trump or not, doesn't matter. Close the border in 3 weeks. He didn't need Congress, neither did Joe Biden. That's all the difference in the explanation that I need. We're not a country that should be taking in 10 million, 15 million illegal people. That's not what America was built on. My grandmother came through Ellis Island. So you want to look her up, Violet Buckle. You can look her up, 1921. And she's on that register. She came here legally. So if we're going to be a country where we're not going to follow laws and we're not going to follow the the guidance that we have had for the 250 years we've been here, what's the point, Anthony, at that, right?
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So I think that, what do you think about Jimmy Kimmel? I read your post.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten...
You went down a Ted Cruz line.
I did.
Yep.
I think of myself as a liberty constitutionalist. Not necessarily, well, in some ways libertarian, but not necessarily. I think he should have been kicked off his show solely for advertisers dropping out and Disney and ABC making that business decision. My problem with what happened was I don't believe it was 100% that. I was a little disturbed with the statements I saw from the FCC chair. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we can all debate how much of an impact that had. But as far as I'm concerned, there should be no impact from the government as to what goes on in media. I'm glad Jimmy Kimmel is back so we can kick him off again for being a very bad talk show host. I want him kicked off again.
So I guess my problem is after I've retired, and I haven't really retired. I've got a garden center and a whole bunch of other things going on, but I do have more time than I've ever had. And I spend some of that time flipping between all of the news stations because you can't get a story from anybody that is any credibility to it, right? Everything is slanted one way or the other. And it's horrible. And so we live in a country now where people are in social media bubbles and they won't get out of their own bubble to try to see what else is out there. And we're losing objectivity. You have to go through life objectively. You cannot look at things as black and white. They're not. They're gray. So the problem becomes that you have people that will, you ask them, okay, just give me one thing that President Trump has done that's good. Just one. They can't. That's not objectiveness. That's crazy. You can't say, I can tell you a dozen things that Joe Biden did that was good. Okay? It may not be tremendously good, but they're good. And I'll give him credit for that. But when you're in a situation where you can't even look at your political adversary and find anything good, that is bad. And that is not what that's not what our forefathers wanted. That's not. They do not want Democrats and Republicans hating each other to the level of political violence like we have today. I don't hate my fellow Americans. I will not hate a Democrat because I'm a Republican. I refuse to do that. They don't have a message, right? So Republicans have a message. We've closed the border. We're trying to get the economy. We've lowered energy prices. There's so many things that benefit every single person in the country. That's the only reason why the Democrats are so low right now, because they have no message. It's all whataboutism. And we're not a country about whataboutism. We're a country of builders. We're a country of manufacturers. We're a country of people that want to advance people. So it's a tough complex.
Yeah. I'm going to answer that with what I said at the end of my show with Chris Bright. Like we mentioned earlier, read Atlas Shrugged. I really think everyone in America should read that book. Yes, it's over 1,000 pages. Yes, it is incredibly dense. But if you read that book, I think it'll change how you think.
What did you think of Jimmy Kimmel's monologue last night? Did you watch it?
I haven't seen it yet. I saw it's a half hour. But
okay. I can tell you that I agree with some of my colleagues that I think he should have apologized for lying, which he did not do. I do think that he was sincere in appreciating Erica Kirk's forgiveness of the shooter, which I felt to be very moving, and it really is a testament to Christianity in itself to be able to forgive somebody who just basically destroyed your life in the life you had. And now the life she's going to have is going to be much different because of that. And to be able to forgive that, I thought was genuine and moving.
As I mentioned during the school board meeting last night, I don't know how many people watched it, but I actually gave a tribute to Charlie Kirk at the end of my Pinkerton update. I didn't really plan it that much. I didn't have anything written down, but what Charlie did, and I said this a while back on the show, but it'll be remembered, felt, I should say. It will be felt forever. No one has had a bigger impact in breaking the stigma that young people can't get involved. He proved that wrong. Mm-hmm. He proved that you can have a voice and have meaning as a young person and actually get stuff done. And when I met him 4 years ago, I was 13. 2 weeks after that, I went to my first school board meeting. And now I sit on that same board as the student member. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of probably thousands across America, maybe millions at some point, that had part of my first inspiration be from him.
I think he inspired a lot of young people, and I think that message is never going to die. I think that his assassination will embolden that movement without a doubt. It will spur it like some of the other modern people that have been assassinated in the past. I'm not going to compare him to Martin Luther King or compare him to Bobby Kennedy or something like that, but Charlie Kirk will stand in history, and not because he was anything bad that the people say he is, but because he cared, and because he was willing to sit there and have a debate. And if we can't have debate, even with our own family members, without shouting or without yelling or without getting upset, that is what our enemies want. Our enemies want this country to be divided. Our enemies want this country to be unsuccessful. America is the most successful country in the world. There's nothing wrong with saying that. You should be proud of your country. We should be proud of every American. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. We should be pulling and rowing in the same direction. And we're not. We're rowing in opposite directions, going in a circle. And that's not what this country is capable of. And we need to find that. We need to find a way to fix that. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. And it won't be President Trump standing in front of the UN telling people that their countries are going to hell. It'll be his own country that's going to hell if we don't fix this.
I think that's a pretty important warning to America. Well, we are just about out of time, so feel free to give any closing statement you may have.
Anthony, I really appreciate coming back down to Derry. I think that the community in itself is vibrant, is robust, is tremendously successful because of guys like you that put that effort in and that attempt to change people's minds. And that's what this is all about. Paying attention, being involved in local government, and changing people's minds and doing a good job. So I think you've done a great job with this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming back down. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.